Commander Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The blue light cast strange shadows across his weathered face, making him look older than his 42 years. Outside the viewport of the U.S. Defiant, stars streaked past in familiar patterns as the massive warship cut through hyperspace. Another peacekeeping mission, he muttered, scrolling through the deployment orders that had arrived just hours earlier. The text was standard military bureaucracy, but something felt different about this one. The Zilani system was completely unknown to him, which was unusual. Most peacekeeping operations happen in territories where humans had some prior contact or intelligence. The orders were straightforward enough. Proceed to the Zilani system and establish order among conflicting parties. Morrison had done dozens of similar missions over his 20-year career. Usually, it meant breaking up colonial disputes, mediating resource conflicts, or occasionally deal with pirates who got too bold for their own good. He pressed the comm button on his desk. Wilson to the bridge. Sergeant Major Kate Wilson appeared within minutes, her combat boots echoing through the metal corridors. She was one of those rare soldiers who seemed more comfortable in full battle gear than civilian clothes. Her dark hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her sharp green eyes immediately focused on the holographic display. "What's the situation, Commander?" Wilson asked, crossing her arms as she studied the mission parameters. Standard peacekeeping deployment. 3-species system called Zilani. Apparently, they're having some kind of territorial dispute that needs outside intervention. Morrison highlighted several data points on the display. Intel is pretty thin, but that's not unusual for these outer rim situations. Wilson nodded, though her expression showed the same confusion Morrison felt. "Sir, do we have any background on these species? Combat capabilities, technology level, political structure?" That's the strange part. The file is almost empty. Just coordinates, a brief mention of hostile activities, and orders to restore peace. Morrison closed the display and stood up, stretching his back. Could be the intelligence boys are being extra secretive, or maybe this came down from way up the chain. "How many Marines are we taking?" Wilson asked, already shifting into operational planning mode. "Full complement. 200 Marines, standard equipment loadout. If it's really just a peaceful mediation, we can keep most of the troops on the ship. But you know how these things go." Wilson definitely knew. Peacekeeping missions had a way of turning complicated fast. What started as diplomatic discussions could spiral into full combat operations within hours. The key was being prepared for anything while hoping for the best. "I'll brief the squad leaders and start prep immediately," Wilson said. "How long until we reach the system?" 18 hours at current speed. That should give everyone time to review what little intel we have and run through standard peacekeeping protocols. As Wilson left organize the Marine contingent, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this mission. In all his years of service, he'd never received orders with so little background information. Usually, command provided detailed cultural briefings, threat assessments, and clear objectives. This felt more like an emergency response than a planned intervention. Meanwhile, in a completely different part of the galaxy, Elder Thyra was having very similar thoughts. The ancient being floated gracefully through the crystalline corridors of her meditation ship, her ethereal form glowing with soft blue light. Her species had evolved beyond physical bodies millions of years ago, existing as pure consciousness within carefully crafted energy fields. The Galactic Harmony Council had requested her team for what appeared to be a routine conflict resolution mission. The Zilani system needed help with some kind of disagreement between local species. It was exactly the type of work Thyra's people specialized in: gentle guidance, empathic connection, and patient meditation to help conflicting parties find common ground. Her assistant, a younger entity named Vex, materialized beside her. "Elder, I've reviewed the mission parameters. The situation seems more urgent than usual council requests." Thyra paused her movement, considering this observation. "Show me the specifics." A holographic display appeared between them, showing the same basic information Morrison had received: coordinates, minimal background, and a request for immediate intervention to restore peace. "The Zilani species is unknown to our databases," Vex continued. And there's mention of aggressive hostile forces rather than the usual territorial or resource disputes. Perhaps they're simply unfamiliar with proper diplomatic channels, Thyra replied, though she felt the same uncertainty her assistant expressed. We'll proceed as planned. Load the harmony generators and prepare the meditation crystals for extended use. Neither the human warship nor the alien meditation vessel knew. They were racing toward the same destination. Neither suspected that a simple computer error in the emergency response system had created this confusion. The Galactic Harmony Council's automated systems had processed the Zilani distress call and simultaneously forwarded it to two completely different peacekeeping organizations. As both ships approached the Zilani system from opposite directions, the stage was set for a meeting that would change galactic politics forever. The peaceful request for help was about to be answered by both the galaxy's most gentle mediators and its most effective warriors. The Zilani had no idea what was coming. The first thing Commander Morrison noticed when the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace was the orange glow. The entire fourth planet of the Zilani system was burning. Massive explosions lit up the surface like a deadly fireworks display, while thick black smoke created swirling patterns in atmosphere. "What the hell is that?" Morrison muttered, leaning forward in his command chair. Lieutenant Tom Bradley, the ship's tactical officer, was already running scans from his console. His fingers flew across the holographic interface as data streamed in. "Sir, I'm reading multiple unknown vessels in orbit around the planet. They're bombarding population centers." Morrison felt his stomach tighten. This wasn't the territorial dispute he'd expected. This was a full-scale planetary assault. "Are those the locals fighting each other?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Negative, sir. The attacking ships don't match any known Zilani designs in our database. These look like military vessels from an aggressive species. Heavy weapons, military formations, coordinated strikes." Captain Lisa Hayes spoke up from her position at the communication station. "Commander, I'm picking up distress signals from the surface. Multiple languages, but the translation software is working on it. Put it through the speakers." The bridge filled with desperate voices speaking in alien languages, but the translation came through clearly enough. Words like help, dying, please, and children needed no interpretation. The fear in those voices was universal. Morrison stood up, his jaw set in a hard line. "How many enemy ships?" 12 heavy cruisers, sir, plus maybe 30 smaller attack vessels." "Any sign of the local defense forces?" Bradley shook his head grimly. "If they had any, they're gone now. I'm seeing debris fields that might have been defensive platforms." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people who'd signed up to keep peace in the galaxy. They hadn't expected to walk into an active genocide, but here they were. "Battle stations," Morrison ordered. "All hands to combat positions." The ship's alarm system activated immediately, filling the corridors with flashing red lights and urgent warnings. Throughout the Defiant, 200 Marines grabbed their weapons and prepared for action. This wasn't the peaceful mediation they'd planned for. "Sir," Hayes called out, "I'm getting communication requests from the attacking vessels. They're demanding we leave immediately or face destruction." "Tell them we're here on official peacekeeping business," Morrison replied. "And Hayes?" "Yes, sir." "Make sure they understand that means we're staying." Lieutenant Bradley was already calculating firing solutions. The enemy ships had formed a loose perimeter around the planet, clearly not expecting any serious resistance. They were positioned like bullies who'd never been challenged. "Tom, how confident are you in those weapon systems?" Morrison asked. Bradley grinned, the same expression he'd worn during combat simulations. "Very confident, sir. These ships don't look like they've ever faced serious opposition." "Wilson, are your Marines ready for boarding operations?" Sergeant Major Wilson's voice came through the comm system from the Marine Bay. "Ready and eager, sir. Just give us targets." Morrison took a deep breath. Everything about this situation felt wrong, but the choice was clear. Down on that planet, innocent people were dying while he watched. The attackers had made their intentions obvious through their actions. All weapons, fire at will. Priority targets are the heavy cruisers. "Tom, I want those bombardment ships eliminated first." The Defiant's weapon systems came alive with deadly purpose. Human military technology had been refined through centuries of conflict, designed by a species that understood war intimately. The first salvo of plasma cannons caught the enemy cruiser completely off guard. The alien ship simply vaporized. One moment it was firing down at the planet's surface. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of superheated metal and gas. Direct hit. Bradley reported with satisfaction, moving to Target 2. The enemy fleet scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. These aliens had clearly been fighting defenseless populations for so long that they'd forgotten how to handle real opposition. Their ships moved sluggishly. Their weapons took forever to charge, and their formation dissolved into chaos within minutes. Captain Hayes watched their tactical display in amazement. "Sir, they're breaking formation. Half of them are trying to retreat." "Don't let them," Morrison ordered coldly. "These aren't soldiers. They're murderers. We don't negotiate with people who bomb civilians." The battle was over in less than 20 minutes. 12 heavy cruisers became 12 debris fields. The smaller attack vessels either surrendered immediately or were destroyed trying to flee. The few survivors found themselves captured by Marines who had very little patience for explanations. As the smoke cleared and the immediate threat ended, Morrison finally allowed himself to relax slightly. Then Hayes spoke up again. "Sir, we have another problem. There's a ship approaching from the outer system. Unknown design, but it's broadcasting peaceful intentions." Morrison looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching vessel. After everything that had just happened, he wasn't in the mood for more surprises. "What kind of ship?" "It looks like some kind of meditation vessel, sir. Very strange energy readings." Morrison had no idea he was about to meet the galaxy's other peacekeepers. The alien ship that approached the Defiant looked like nothing Commander Morrison had ever seen. Instead of metal and armor plating, it seemed to be made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with soft, calming light. No visible weapons, no shields, no defensive systems at all. It moved through space with the gentle grace of a soap bubble floating on a breeze. "Sir, they're requesting permission to come aboard," Captain Hayes reported from her communication station. "They say they're here for the same peacekeeping mission we are." Morrison frowned. "The same mission? That doesn't make sense. Command never mentioned other peacekeepers. Should I tell them to maintain distance while we figure this out?" "No," Morrison decided. "Let them come aboard, but keep security teams ready just in case." Within an hour, the strangest diplomatic meeting in Morrison's career was taking place in the Defiant's main conference room. Elder Thyra floated about 3 feet off the ground, her translucent blue form shimmering like water. She had no solid body that Morrison could see, just a vaguely humanoid shape made of pure energy. "Commander Morrison," Thyra said, her voice somehow appearing directly in everyone's minds rather than through their ears. "I must express my concern about your methods of establishing peace." Morrison looked around the table at his officers. Lieutenant Bradley was staring at Thyra with open fascination, while Sergeant Major Wilson kept her hand near her sidearm out of habit. "My methods?" Morrison asked. "I stopped a bunch of murderers from bombing innocent civilians. What's concerning about that?" "Violence creates more violence," Thyra replied gently. "When you destroyed those ships, you likely created deep hatred among the survivors. This hatred will grow and spread, eventually leading to more conflict." Wilson leaned forward. "With respect, ma'am, those ships were actively killing people. Every second we spent talking would have meant more dead civilians." Thyra's form flickered slightly, showing her confusion. But surely there were other options. Negotiation, mediation, finding the root cause of their anger and addressing it peacefully. Their root cause was wanting to enslave an entire planet, Morrison said flatly. Some problems don't have peaceful solutions. What followed was the most surreal conversation of Morrison's military career. Through careful questioning, they learned that Thyra and her people had never experienced war. Not just that they were peaceful, they literally had no concept of lethal conflict between intelligent beings. "On your world," Thyra asked, "do your people really kill each other over disagreements?" "Unfortunately, yes," Morrison admitted. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it. But why? Surely rational discussion can resolve any dispute. Lieutenant Bradley spoke up. What happens on your world when someone wants something that belongs to someone else and won't take no for an answer? Thyra seemed puzzled by the question. That situation simply doesn't arise. If someone desires something, the community works together to either provide it or help them understand why their desire might be harmful. And if they refuse to listen? Wilson asked. Refuse to listen? Thyra repeated the words as if they made no sense. Why would anyone refuse wisdom offered with love? Morrison was beginning to understand just how different these aliens were. Thyra, where exactly do your people come from? The Harmony worlds in the peaceful sector. All civilized species originate from Class 1 worlds. Perfectly balanced planets with ideal conditions for developing wisdom and compassion. Class 1. Morrison exchanged glances with his officers. What class is Earth? Thyra consulted some kind of energy device that appeared in her hands. Let me check the Galactic Registry. There was a long pause, and her form began to flicker more rapidly. This must be an error. According to this, Earth is classified as a Class 12 Death World. Death World. Bradley asked. That sounds accurate. But that's impossible, Thyra said, her mental voice filled with confusion. No intelligent life can develop on a Class 12 planet. The conditions are too extreme. Constant natural disasters, predatory animals, temperature variations that would kill most species, atmospheric pressure changes, toxic weather patterns. You just described a normal Tuesday on Earth, Wilson said dryly. Morrison pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's surface. Images of hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, blizzards, tornadoes, and floods filled the air between them. Thyra's form began to pulse with agitated light. Your species developed intelligence while dealing with all of this. It's why we develop intelligence, Morrison explained. On Earth, if you can't adapt quickly, you die. If you can't work together under pressure, you die. If you can't make hard decisions fast, you die. But the psychological trauma, Thyra whispered. How do you maintain sanity in such conditions? We don't always, Morrison admitted, but we keep trying. We've learned that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be ready for war. Suddenly, Captain Hayes' urgent voice filled the conference room through the comm system. Commander, long-range sensors are picking up a massive fleet approaching the system. Looks like the main Krex Armada, at least 100 ships. Morrison stood immediately. How long until they arrive? 6 hours, sir. Thyra's form flickered with what Morrison was learning to recognize as fear. Commander, surely we must evacuate the civilians and retreat. Your single ship cannot face such numbers. We're not retreating, Morrison said firmly. These people asked for help, and we're going to give it to them. But it's suicide. Even your advanced weapons cannot defeat such overwhelming force. Morrison looked at the gentle alien being who had never seen real conflict, and felt something like sympathy. Thyra, there's something you need to understand about humans. We didn't become the dominant species on our planet by running away from impossible odds. We became dominant by figuring out how to win anyway. How? By being more stubborn than whatever's trying to kill us. Commander Morrison stared at the tactical display, showing over 100 enemy ships approaching the system. The dots representing the Krex Armada looked like a swarm of angry hornets heading straight for them. His single ship, no matter how advanced, couldn't possibly handle that many enemies alone. Sir, Lieutenant Bradley said quietly, maybe the alien has a point. We could evacuate as many civilians as possible and fall back to request reinforcements. Morrison shook his head. By the time reinforcements arrive, there won't be anyone left to save. Besides, running isn't really our style. Elder Thyra's energy form pulsed with distress. Commander, I don't understand your species' apparent desire for self-destruction. Tactical retreat is sometimes the wisest course. Maybe, Morrison admitted, but I've got an idea. Your people have abilities we don't. Mental communication, right? You can connect minds across long distances. Yes, but I don't see how that helps against overwhelming military force. Morrison turned to Sergeant Major Wilson. Kate, remember the Proxima campaign? How we wish we could coordinate our squads without radio chatter giving away positions. Wilson's eyes lit up with understanding. Perfect silent communication. No delays, no interference, no chance of intercept. She looked at Thyra with new interest. Could you link our Marines mentally during combat? Theoretically, yes, Thyra replied slowly. But I've never attempted to connect with minds that think in terms of violence and destruction. Right now, we think in terms of protecting innocent people. Morrison said firmly. Can you work with that? The next few hours became the strangest military preparation in human history. Thyra's meditation ship docked with the Defiant, and her fellow Etherians began the delicate process of establishing mental links with human soldiers. Captain Alex Turner, leader of the Marine assault teams, sat perfectly still as one of Thyra's assistants floated nearby. The alien's energy field wrapped around his head like a gentle blue glow. This feels incredibly weird, Turner muttered. Try to think peaceful thoughts, the Etherian advised. Lady, I'm about to go into battle. Peaceful thoughts aren't exactly my specialty right now. The process was complicated by fundamental differences in how the two species thought. Humans naturally compartmentalized information and made rapid tactical decisions. The Etherians processed everything as interconnected harmony, seeking balance in all things. But slowly it began to work. Turner found himself aware of his squad's positions without looking. When Sergeant Rachel Green moved to cover the left flank, he felt her movement like an extension of his own body. When Private Danny Cole prepared to provide covering fire, Turner knew it before Cole even raised his weapon. This is incredible, Turner reported to Morrison. It's like having eyes in the back of my head, except they belong to my entire squad. Meanwhile, the Zilani were contributing their own expertise. Their species had mastered terraforming technology over centuries of peaceful development. Within hours, they had helped human engineers transform the system's asteroid belt into a deadly obstacle course for incoming ships. Chief Engineer Roberts worked alongside Zilani technicians to plant explosive charges throughout the asteroid field. Your mining equipment is amazing, he told his alien counterpart. We could have spent days doing what you accomplished in hours. The Zilani engineer's translation device conveyed his confusion. We've never used our tools for destructive purposes before. It feels strange to think of mining equipment as weapons. Right now, they're tools for saving lives, Roberts assured him. Sometimes that requires breaking other things first. As the Krex Armada approached, Morrison realized they had created something entirely new, a defense system that combined human military tactics with alien mental coordination and advanced peaceful technology repurposed for war. All teams, check your mental links. Morrison ordered through the ship's communication system. Throughout the Defiant and its defensive positions, human Marines reported perfect coordination with their squads. They could sense each other's positions, intentions, and tactical awareness with supernatural precision. Elder Thyra floated onto the bridge, her energy form more stable than Morrison had seen before. Commander, I must admit something. When I first connected with your minds, I was horrified by the violence I found there. And now, Morrison asked, now I understand. You don't think violent thoughts because you enjoy destruction. You think them because you're willing to sacrifice yourselves to protect others. Her form pulsed with something like admiration. Your species weaponizes compassion. Captain Hayes called out from her station. Enemy fleet entering the outer system. They're moving in standard attack formation. Morrison looked at his tactical display. The Krex ships were spread across a wide front, clearly expecting no significant resistance. They had no idea what was waiting for them. All teams, remember the plan, Morrison announced. We hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before they can respond. Use the mental link to stay coordinated and trust your training. Lieutenant Bradley grinned as he targeted the first wave of asteroid mines. Sir, they're about to learn why humans are the galaxy's best problem solvers. And what's that? Thyra asked. We turn everything into a weapon, Morrison replied. Even peace. The battle was about to begin, and for the first time, Morrison felt confident they might actually win. The Krex Armada entered the Zalani system like a pack of wolves expecting to find defenseless sheep. Admiral Vextar, commanding the massive fleet from his flagship, had conquered 17 worlds using the same brutal strategy. Arrive with overwhelming force, destroy any resistance quickly, then strip the planet of resources and populations. Begin standard bombardment protocol. Vextar ordered his weapons officers. Target population centers first. Break their spirit before they can organize any defense. What happened next would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. The first wave of Krex ships hit the asteroid field at full speed, expecting to brush aside the small rocks like cosmic dust. Instead, they triggered a chain reaction of explosions that lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Asteroids that had been hollowed out and packed with human explosives detonated in perfect sequence, creating a wall of superheated metal and debris. What was that? Vextar demanded as 12 of his heavy cruisers simply vanished in the explosions. Before his officers could respond, human fighter squadrons materialized from behind the larger asteroids. Lieutenant Tom Bradley led his wing in a coordinated strike that seemed impossible. Every pilot moved in perfect synchronization, as if they were controlled by a single mind, because, in a way, they were. Through Elder Thyra's mental network, Bradley could feel every other pilot's intentions and reactions. When Captain Lisa Hayes dug toward a Krex destroyer, Bradley knew to provide covering fire before she even asked. When Sergeant Rachel Green's fighter took damage, the entire squadron instantly shifted to protect her retreat. "This is incredible," Bradley reported over the comm system. "It's like flying with telepaths." The Krex fleet tried to adapt, but they had never faced an enemy with perfect battlefield awareness. Human tactics relied on confusion, misdirection, and rapid changes in strategy. The mental link made these complex maneuvers effortless. Admiral Vextar watched his carefully organized battle formation fall apart within minutes. His ships were being destroyed faster than he could count them, and he couldn't understand how such a small force was causing so much devastation. "Send the entire fleet forward," he ordered desperately. "Crush them with pure numbers." But Commander Morrison had anticipated this response. Hidden throughout the system, Zalani terraforming devices began activating. Equipment designed to reshape planets for peaceful colonization instead created massive gravitational anomalies that pulled Krex ships off course. "Sir," reported one of Vextar's navigation officers, "our ships are being dragged into unstable gravity wells. We're losing formation integrity." That's when the human Marines struck. Boarding pods launched from concealed positions throughout the asteroid field, targeting the largest enemy vessels. Sergeant Major Wilson led the assault on Vextar's flagship personally. The Krex had never encountered anything like human close combat tactics. Their species had evolved on a peaceful world and relied on overwhelming technological superiority. When humans in powered armor came crashing through their hull, wielding weapons designed for maximum psychological impact, the alien crew panicked completely. "Surrender your vessel," Wilson ordered through her suit's external speakers. Her voice amplified to sound like the roar of an angry predator. The Krex bridge crew took one look at the heavily armed humans and immediately complied. They had no cultural framework for understanding creatures that seemed to enjoy combat. Throughout the battle, Elder Thyra coordinated the mental network from the Defiance Bridge. She found herself experiencing human tactical thinking firsthand, and the revelation was profound. These weren't bloodthirsty monsters. They were protectors willing to face any danger to keep innocent people safe. "Commander Morrison," she said as the last Krex ships either surrendered or fled the system, "I owe your species an apology. I thought you were violent because you lack wisdom. Now I understand you're violent because you have too much compassion." Morrison smiled tiredly as he watched the tactical display show their complete victory. Sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is make sure the bullies know there will be consequences. The aftermath of the battle changed everything. News of humanity's victory spread through the Galactic Harmony Council faster than hyperspace communications could carry it. For the first time in recorded history, a peaceful species had successfully defended themselves against a major aggressive empire. The Krex Empire, facing the complete destruction of their invasion fleet, immediately requested peace negotiations rather than risk encountering more Deathworlder Peacekeepers in future conflicts. Their ambassador arrived at the Zilani system within days, offering full reparations and promising to withdraw from all disputed territories. We had no idea such effective peacekeepers existed. The Krex diplomat explained to Morrison during the surrender ceremony. Our empire has reconsidered its expansion policies. Elder Thyra established a permanent research station in the Zilani system, becoming the first of her species to study human military philosophy. She discovered that humans didn't fight because they love violence. They fought because they loved peace enough to defend it. The Galactic Harmony Council created a new classification specifically for humanity, Enhanced Diplomatic Peacekeepers. The title recognized that sometimes the best way to maintain galactic harmony was having someone willing and able to fight for it. Commander Morrison accepted the position of Earth's first ambassador to the Council, while the Zilani system became home to the new Integrated Peacekeeping Academy. The Academy trained diplomats in tactical thinking, while teaching soldiers about conflict resolution. Captain Hayes established combat training programs. Elder Thyra developed advanced meditation techniques. And Zilani engineers created new technologies that served both peaceful and defensive purposes. The message spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Those who threatened innocent people would now face beings involved in conflict, trained in violence, and absolutely committed to protecting others. Peace, it turned out, had found its guardians.